Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Built for 2030 Hackathon. We're super excited today to be here with you for our workshop and session, Enable Internal Changemaking at all levels for impact. Before we begin, we just want to remind everyone to keep this as a safe and welcoming place for all participants. And you can participate by sharing your comments on the chat or use the raise your hand feature at the top of your Teams navigation bar. Please engage with us. We're looking forward to an exciting discussion. To get started, let's introduce our speakers. I will start with myself. So my name is Gena Goh. I am the Channel Inclusion and Impact Senior Strategy Lead with the Microsoft Global Partner Solutions business. I lead our channel inclusion strategies and also our Built for 2030 initiative. For those of you who are not able to see the screen right now, I am a Chinese woman with long black hair, wearing some purple pendant earrings today and a dark green top. I'm here together with my fellow speakers, Jeanine Buzali, social entrepreneur and changemaker lead at the Ashoka Changemaker Companies, Joerg Hambueckers, senior partner development manager and Microsoft Sustainability Chapter lead for Germany. Jeanine, Joerg, please introduce yourself to kick us off on the topic today, and also maybe share a little bit with the audience. What's the value you see in changemaking? Jeanine, do you want to get us started?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Gena. I'm really happy to be here with you all. So I'm Jeanine Buzali, and I'll start with my visual description. So I'm a Mediterranean curly-haired woman, and I'm wearing a gray sweater today, sitting down at my desk in Mexico City. So like Gena said, I lead Ashoka's Changemaker Companies work in the US. And in my personal approach to changemaking is that I deeply believe that companies have a major role to play in solving the world's hardest problems. So I'm really thrilled to be a partner in the Build for 2030 Hackathon. Like this is exactly the kind of activity that we want to be seeing from our partner companies. So Ashoka is a nonprofit that identifies and supports systems changing social entrepreneurs while also engaging with companies to scale and amplify the work of the entrepreneurs. In addition to that, we have a mission to empower everyone to own and live their change-making potential. And my work leads me to do that at that intersection of companies, employees, and social entrepreneurs globally. And it's in this way that we're trying to unleash greater impact possibilities. It's this collaborative approach that we think is the solution to complex problems. So understanding and practicing change making really enables all of us to play a role in making the world a better place, because it teaches us to tap into our unique way of viewing the world and seeing these opportunities everywhere. So I'm looking forward to digging into that today with you all.
Yeah, my name is Joerg Hambueckers. Hello, and thank you for the invitation. I'm a male white German native with blonde hair and a beard, wearing a black sweater, and I'm in my office outside of Munich in Germany. In my day job, I'm a partner development manager in the Global Partner Solutions unit. Additionally, I co-lead at night the local sustainability chapter of Microsoft employees. Together with 5,000 or so employees around the world in the sustainability community, we drive change across the company, our partner ecosystem, and our joint customers for a diverse, inclusive, and environmental friendly future. Working in IT for 20 years, I recognize that in recent years, there has been a new way of working, a new level of empowerment for the individuals and non-hierarchical teams that offer tremendous value to organizations like Microsoft and even smaller ones, and particular to the individuals themselves. There's an opportunity to develop skills beyond our regular set of routines and even lead V teams or communities of interest or experts. Organizations benefit from that motivated employee that get creative solutions for complex issues, and everybody's having fun in the meantime.
Thanks, Jeanine. Thanks, Joerg. We're so excited to be having this discussion today. So I wanted to start first by sharing with everyone that this session is being presented as part of the Microsoft #Built for 2030 initiative. This was started to build and recognize transformational solutions and services that can help us scale innovation and also help us drive the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals forward together with the Microsoft partner ecosystem. And so we've been featuring partners on our marketplace with their solutions as part of the #Built for 2030 campaign. We are also excited for the participation that's coming through for the Microsoft Built for 2030 Hackathon. And I believe that's why you're all here listening into the recording and here today. So to kick us off and get us started, let's warm up everyone in the room. I'd love for everyone here to maybe take a moment to jot down if you have a notepad beside you, or make a type in your OneNote if you have it on, a couple of change makers that come to mind. And then also maybe ask yourself, if you say, a change maker is, what comes to mind? And feel free to share that in the chat. See people typing. So someone in the chat said, Greta Thunberg, the young climate activist. Someone who evaluates systems for improvement, for inclusivity is another comment we got. Identifies a problem and is interested in solving it. Change makers are self-driven and motivated. Great comments. Thanks, everyone. And so that's where we're going to start. And we're going to start with Ashoka's definition of a change maker, which I found very helpful to learn about. So who is a change maker? We're going to share this context and then also have and invite Jeanine to walk us through the Ashoka Changemaker framework. So Ashoka, having worked with hundreds of social entrepreneurs and change makers, has shared that a change maker is anyone who is taking creative action to solve a social problem. Change makers identify a specific problem or opportunity, give themselves permission to do something about it, and use a combination of knowledge, resources, and determination to tackle it. So this sounds very much like the comments we got in the chat. And what I do love about it is that it's very inviting and a possibility for everyone to just lean into this mindset and to be a change maker. But how do we hone the skill of change making and generate change more quickly, especially around social impact? Jeanine, will you walk us through, I love the learning about the Ashoka Changemaker framework. It really broadened my perspective on change making. So I'd love for you to walk us through the change making skills.
Yes, of course. And a little bit of background first on how this was developed. So Gena, like you said, we looked at our network of social entrepreneurs. There's actually 4,000 of them globally. And we identified these 4 areas that you see on the screen of change-making skills and attitudes. Then in 2019, we conducted interviews and surveys with McKinsey to further validate and refine this framework. And we've been working with corporate partners such as Microsoft to adapt this framework to corporate environments and people working within them. So there's a few applications of the same framework depending on let's say the target audience, but it's at the base, it's the same framework that we would use for young people or for companies or for social entrepreneurs and so on. So walking through the 4 areas, starting with cognitive empathy, which is the entry point skill. And the way we define this is the ability to be aware of and understand our own, others, individuals, and groups' perspectives and circumstances, and to use that understanding to recognize patterns over time. We call it cognitive because there's a combination of brain systems that work together when this type of empathy is activated in the brain. And what the combination of systems together, it generates this deepest understanding of others. So it's really taking what we would normally call these soft social emotional intelligence to this kind of this next level where you are able to not just have empathy at a really deep level, but also see patterns in how the world is working around you. So this includes things like openness, commitment to evolving one's mindset and thinking, humility, identifying patterns. There's a lot of sub-skills that go into that. The next one is systemic action, which is the process of creating a new solution to a social problem that is more effective, efficient, sustainable, or just than existing solutions. And that's because it addresses core systemic issues. This skill set is very broad and very action-oriented. So it includes things like self-permission to act, dedication to bringing about change, recognizing opportunity, and being comfortable with ambiguity, and having a thirst for learning. And this came up, the things that people put in the chat about living the purpose, right, is sort of that, is walking the talk, is what this skill captures. In our research with McKinsey, we identified that systems changing leaders have a shared belief where they accept constant change as a reality and believe that every individual and organization can make a change within the system if empowered to do so. So there's an aspect of it that has to do with looking at the system as a whole and seeing opportunities for everybody to engage in driving change forward, obviously towards positive impact and a better world. And this sort of leads into the third skill, which is collaborative teamwork, which is the ability to contribute to and thrive in a fluid ecosystem of teams that mobilize around each new problem or opportunity. So the key here is playing multiple roles, kind of ongoing, right? Like being able to be agile with that, enabling others to grow, and being agile to anticipate what new challenges are coming and designing and building new teams as needed. So we call this breaking out of silos, right? So instead of saying I'm in this function, in this role, in this organization, it's about how can I organize for a problem that I see needs to be solved, and who are the best partners for that, even if they're outside of my immediate team or even my organization. So this includes things like sharing responsibility, multiple role playing, and fostering a sense of collective agency. So again, very much about empowering others to step into their power of being change makers. And so, like I said, this applies to one's ability to do this in your own organization, but also across other organizations. So building teams that transcend even that. And I think in the Hack for 2030, we've been able to work very collaboratively, Gina. So I want to reflect that the putting this together reflects, I think, some of these skills, which is really great. And then the fourth one is shared leadership, which is about scaling impact, again, beyond the confines of a team or an organization or even an industry. And so this involves ensuring that everyone involved is able to initiate and see that big picture, right? So again, that common theme of empowering everybody to be a change maker. So what's interesting here is that there's an aspect of encouraging replicability by empowering the team and extended teammates, what we at Ashoka would call the team of teams, to contribute to defining definitions and design in this ongoing way. So from our analysis of the social entrepreneurs in our network, we saw that a really key thing for them is encouraging replication of their work to drive this adoption of change making. So whatever their solution is, they're trying to get others to do something similar, and therefore that essentially drives a change in the system, right? Because there's now a new system that everyone is working towards and under. And so this includes things like being able to see the big picture, recognize connections, see or be resilient and adaptable. And also, again, the belief that individuals should be empowered to contribute to society, right? That we all have a role to play. Let me pause here.
Thanks for walking us through. And like I said before, every single time I've heard this, and I've heard this multiple times, and again today, I'm reminded of and picking up something new from this framework because the words look so familiar. Empathy, systems action, teamwork, leadership. It feels very familiar, but there is something in the perspective that the framework is bringing that's different and a bit nuanced. And it's a great reminder to just have you walk us through that. And I wanted to pick up on that last point around replicability, because part of the hope that we have, right, with the Build for 2030 hackathon, and as we bring new solutions to market, is to find that replicability and that scalability, because too often solutions can be very niche, which is all good, that it's all making an impact, but the ones that are able to generate that systemic change is the one it's typically where it's replicable. So thanks for walking us through that, Jeanine. And so moving on from here, it's really about, the more on the how, right? So we've heard about the framework, we've heard about the skills. What I loved also is learning from Ashoka how they see this typically get embedded into businesses, how it gets embedded into business and solution strategies. And so I'll very quickly walk us through the 4 areas here that we have up on the slide, and then invite Joerg and Jeanine to, round this up with some examples that they're seeing. Joerg, from the Microsoft partners that you may be working with, that you may be engaging with in our partner leadership teams, and then Jeanine from your other engagements with other companies, in social impact and or business. So the first one here that we have in the how, really, it's about starting to engage with social impact partners. And that includes, partnering with organizations like nonprofits, change makers and social entrepreneurs, and actually the beneficiaries and the communities that you're trying to help or serve with your solution or your service. The second one here, it's about embedding purpose in how you lead. And what we mean there is about identifying a societal purpose or social impact goal that can transcend and become a transformative motivation for the business. And that can align with, a North Star that should also align with your core business strategies and approach. The third one is about encouraging social innovation. That is really a mindset. Maybe Jeanine can add more here when I turn it over to her. But to me, that's very much about just being willing to ask the bold questions and challenge our own thinking and our thinking of the teams and the people we work with, and also embrace methodologies like hacking, right? And that's why we're here today with the Build for 2030 hackathon. Hackathons and hacking, that mindset has been shown to be able to disrupt common patterns in thinking and encourage new ways of looking at a problem. And the final one is about institutionalizing the change. And this is really about thinking about the long term, right? While it's great to have an idea, how can you think up front and in your process of maturing your idea, ways to make it institutionalized into your organization or into your team environment? That could mean tracking and identifying the right set of social impact and environmental metrics. It could also mean truly integrating the social impact approach in your hiring and your procurement strategies. So maybe I'll turn it over to Joerg first, to maybe pick a couple here on the slide that you wanted to share about with our audience, especially where you see examples from our partner ecosystem who are already doing this work and using some of the approaches here we have walked through.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, when it comes to sustainability, it's a very broad topic. And when you look at the UN SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals, those 17, there are three different levels, right? There is the economic, the social, and the environmental impact, so to speak. Those are the three categories. So when you look at them and realize how many different problems contain, you are at a stage where you realize that it's very important to be knowledgeable on these topics. So as Microsoft employee, we know our technology. We understand how to leverage the power of technology to see how we extract data and gain knowledge from it and apply expertise. So that's fantastic. But when you think about how to solve issues with the greenhouse gases, or when you think about water and waste consumptions and how to reduce that, you getting to a point where you realize that it makes a lot of sense to engage with social impact partners, nonprofit, those that have a year or multiple years of experience in that field, because there's great learnings in that. And combining our technical knowledge and their expertise is very powerful, right? So that's one of them. And the other one, when engaging with our Microsoft ecosystem, we found very quickly, we found common grounds. A lot of these companies already have an anchor to sustainability one way or the other. And I really want to stress the fact that sustainability contains ability. So it is really an ability to apply change. And that is what is really important here. That's the second part of the word, but it's the most important. There is an ability we all have to drive this change. And when I look at that, and we engaged with some of the partners, they had great examples, and also when they realized that they can apply this knowledge, they came to a point, for example, where one of them in his organization not only gave his employees the permission to study sustainability on their day jobs, but also they opened their own podcast series and applied or invited people from their ecosystem to talk about their jobs and why it is important and what they're actually doing in all of these areas. So it became really an important aspect. And when you think about that is really what caught me in the Build for 2030 campaign. The ability to apply change and think out of the box and come to the problem with several people that have all different perspectives. And I have to say, it's been a very fruitful 2 years journey so far, and I'm looking forward to even further years ahead.
Thank you, Joerg. I really appreciate your perspective on ability and sustainability. I hadn't thought too much about it that way. Thank you for that. That's something to really think about, because part of what I think we all need is to find a ways to make it happen. So that's something I'm going to take away with me as well. Jeanine, do you want to walk us through one of your examples here that I know we've spoken about before, of a health pharmaceutical organization, I believe, that really was able to embrace some of these aspects of these framework?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this example hits on all of these in various ways. So yeah, it's a good one. So we've had a decade-long partnership with German-based pharma company Boehringer Ingelheim, which we call BI for short. And in that partnership, we enabled a really meaningful collaborations between corporate employees and social entrepreneurs that eventually led to BI developing this whole new way of thinking about how to do base of the pyramid access to medicine and services. And the company's executives, so it's hard to set up these collaborations because companies and social entrepreneurs are so different in nature, right? And that's why this change-making framework is so important, because it helps bridge that gap. And so what we did here was that company BI's executives worked with social entrepreneurs to provide strategic on-site support. And this led to this ongoing collaborations where it wasn't just the company supporting social entrepreneurs, but rather ideating and bringing sort of different expertise together to create something new. And this, I think, is this piece of encouraging social innovation, where the company was saying, yes, we're gonna encourage and empower people to do that. And it got to the point where board level leadership acknowledged that this journey, and especially the ability to look through the lens of these social entrepreneurs who are doing really grassroots work, helped employees anticipate market changes and see longer term new market opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have thought about because of this just disconnection from the hard realities of the bottom of the pyramid in developing countries in particular. So from an impact perspective, this intentional engagement between traditional business and social entrepreneurs is unleashing this whole new ecosystem of health solutions in East Africa and India, where the partnership is based. And I think that wouldn't have happened without BI really committing to embracing these principles of how to integrate change making into core business and into kind of how people are approaching collaborations and the problems they're trying to solve.
Thanks, Jeanine. It's fascinating when you think about, how organizations that are, I think in this case, this organization has been around for decades, right? A really, really established business,
Yeah.
and they are in market for a long time. That's also a challenge in itself, right? How do they continue to sustain and grow their business model? And it's amazing to see that they're using their resources and embracing this mindset that I think, is actually strengthening the core of the business and the longevity of the business in new markets as well over time. I'll add here to the very last point on this slide on institutionalizing the change. That's a journey that Microsoft ourselves, for example, has been on. And it's one that requires innovation in the thinking as well, because for many business organizations, we're very familiar with business metrics, right? Revenue, right? And in the cloud, new customer ads and things like that. But the interesting thing and what I love to see more of as well, and that Microsoft is on our own journey, has been starting to track and actually share publicly some of our metrics that are related to social impact. For example, just yesterday, Microsoft published our annual Global Diversity and Inclusion Report, growing our transparency and continuing to share how we're doing with increasing the diversity of our employees and how we're continuing to invest in making progress. And so these are just some examples of how organizations can begin to think of different ways, right? Not just the ideation, but also building in the tracking, the systems, and some of the other organizational factors to ensure that as you're on this journey, it becomes one that has staying power over time. Anything else here to add, Joerg, Jeanine? Otherwise, you can move into the discussion and workshop session.
Yeah, I would have one addition actually, just to remind everybody, when it comes to that kind of purpose that you want to lead with, that kind of let's say desire to really apply change, one thing is very important. Let's not go with the first thing and not go with an easy solution, right? We really need to ask ourselves hard questions if we want to apply change and impact.
Awesome. Yep. And I just want to acknowledge a comment here in the chat as well that, hearing about this model and the skills is that this is frankly a good model for any high functioning and performing team, not just for change making. And I think we all agree, right? We believe that change making, we've seen in the data that purpose-led organizations actually drive 30% more innovation, they drive higher customer satisfaction and better employee retention. So it's very much aligned with growing your business and differentiating business as well. All right, so at this point, please, maybe use some of the team reactions if everything has been resonating with you. Love to see some comments in the chat or reactions in our meeting. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to actually go into a bit of time to allow everyone to have a moment to actually reflect on whatever you may be working on. and leverage the framework that we just shared. So we have 5 questions. We're going to break it up into 2 parts. The first set of questions will focus more on the skills. So the questions are, which skills resonate with you? How might you use the change-making skills in the solution building or your project that you're working on right now for the hackathon? And the second question, what can you do differently to bring more change making into your team or business culture? So take a moment to think about those from your lens. We'll set the timer here, and you can look at the skills: cognitive empathy, systemic action, collaborative teamwork, and shared leadership were the ones that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to have everyone go on mute and we can start the timer and everyone can have some working time and we can come back as a group to discuss. Great. That time went by fast, but I see people furiously typing in the chat. I have a few notes here myself. So we will, Jeanine, feel free to go here if you have a thought. Otherwise, we can maybe have everyone complete their thought in the chat and we can address some of the comments.
No, yeah, I think we can, there's some good stuff in the chat. We can definitely read them out.
Joerg, do you want to talk about your comment? You're saying here diverse teams required for shared leadership, empathy to a problem and our solution situation lets you discover aspects that you might not have thought of.
Yeah, basically what I come to realize every time I'm engaged on either a hackathon, a project, or a virtual team instead of a hierarchical team is that it's very beneficial to have a diverse team that shares different kind of experience, that has a different way to look at the problems or the situation, and brings aspects to the table that you haven't thought of. So quite simple, right? So everybody has a different background. Everybody has a life outside of their workplace. So that is what you can bring to the table to be a true self. And at the same time, all the learnings you gain from your own experience is something that you should be applying to a matter when you want to drive change in your passion.
Yeah, and we really are encouraging all the teams who are participating in the hackathon to be thinking about bringing in that diverse perspective into your process. Either, ideally part of your team itself, otherwise do engage and ensure that there is a way in your process as you design your solution to be designing with the people you intend to serve, your customers that you want to reach, rather than for, and we learned that as well in one of our other accessibility sessions.
Yeah, and I think there's another comment in the chat that the cognitive empathy piece really plays a big role in creating accessible solutions, because it's about creating things past our lived experience. I think that's really important, right? There's something about imagining what's possible, even as you're seeing the constraints of the current system that exists around you, right? So it's kind of this dual mental thing that I think cognitive empathy combined with the systems change, so the tendency to action allows you to really see, right, constraints, and then yet how to not be limited by them and come up with new solutions.
Yeah. And there's also a comment about the patterns, which was a really critical learning for me when we were working together, Jeanine, on the framework. In that you made it explicit that you're looking for patterns. I think oftentimes many of us are trained to already do that as part of business, but we may not be thinking about the fact as intentionally, right? That actually there's a pattern in behavior, and it's really, to me, a skill set. The more you can train yourself and build your muscle around identifying patterns of action, especially where it's relating to social change, that is another level in terms of your leadership skill, really, and your ability to begin, unpacking parts of a system and how you can introduce something to see in the direction that you want it to go in. And the comment here in the chat is also really connected to emotional intelligence as well, patterns and empathy. So really love to see all those insights from the participants. Great. So let's move on to the next set of questions. So this is moving into more of the how again, to think about the skills that we've just discussed. But in addition to that, right, while we embrace the skills, we try to live and lead with those skills. We want to begin thinking about those 4 areas that we spoke about earlier, which was engaging with social impact partners, embedding more purpose into the way you lead, or the direction your company and organization is headed in, finding ways to drive social innovation, asking bold questions, hacking, right? And then institutionalizing the change. So the questions here are: which organizations or experts you might reach out to support your hack project, and who are some, in air quotes, unlikely partners that you could invite into your process, or whatever you might be working on in your organization right now. Maybe ask boldly, what are some of your blind spots? Who can help you identify what those blind spots might be? Who are you excluding currently from your solution set and design? Or how can your solutions be more inclusive? And then lastly, a third question here to think about, how can you increase adoption of your idea? So I'll set the timer as well, and then we can come back and discuss. Great. Well, the timer is up. That was quick again. So reading the comments in the chat, we have quite a few. Jeanine, was there one here you wanted to comment on or yep?
Yeah, I like the point about not shying away if there is a point of disagreement, right? That's fantastic, because I think what we're lacking, particularly in our work life, very often is the time to discuss and really think things through. Many times we're in such a rush and very solution driven that we really overlook something, and then we're on a certain path, we're trying to execute it, but you know, there might be others that are not loud like your personality. There might be others that have a different perspective, and I think it's important to be appreciative of that.
Yeah, that's really true. The time pressure to execute. I've often found that instead of spending more time up front trying to figure out what we're trying to solve, we're just always solving. I think Ashoka has a beautiful quote here. I won't try to say it, but Jeanine, if you remember, I think we learned this from one of your coworkers around focusing on problem. Like maybe you can walk us through that quote.
I don't remember exactly what it said, but essentially, we spend a lot of time helping our social entrepreneurs define the problem they're trying to solve. Um, because it's an Einstein quote, right? It's like the spend 98% of the effort on
Yes,
defining the
that's right.
problem and then the rest on the solution. And the reason is because I think so. There's first of all, there's this piece of understanding, like Joerg said, and others, what you might not be seeing, right? So blind spots and really defining it. But I think the more you invest in something, the more you have an intricate and intimate connection to it, and that also allows you to explore change making in different ways, right? It's all about those emotional and social skills coming out because you're so deeply linked to this issue that you're trying to tackle.
Mm, yeah, love that. And I'm seeing another one here. To create more inclusion, right? A perspective for the solution building is thinking more on a global level, not necessarily just your immediate geography or your community, so that the solution may have an opportunity to be serving and accounting for different cultures, different participants trying to engage with your product. Another comment here, spreading the word and storytelling. So that, I think that's a comment maybe related to scalability and replicability because the storytelling is so important. It may feel like it's marketing, which is great, right? It's also great differentiation, but so much of that is about role modeling. And when you put your story out there, other organizations, maybe from around the world, might have opportunity to learn from it and replicate it, or might reach out to you, right, to expand the reach of what you're building. Just looking at the additional comments here in the chat. And maybe one more to call out. Unlikely partner sounds like a big word. It feels like you have to reach very far. Maybe you could reach very far in a completely different industry, like Jeanine walked us through earlier. But I like the comment here in the chat with the unlikely partners. Just start with your team and your colleagues. There are people that you may not have even engaged with that can help you. And you want to add something there?
Yeah, actually, I'm aware of a case where a company that was never thinking towards sustainability before invited 50% people to a hackathon that were not part of the company, and particular, all of them were women. And so the experience of the hackathon weekend was basically that everybody that has been working for the company for the longest time were not that much able to think out of the box, versus everybody else that joined were coming up straight with ideas and solutions around sustainability. And so it became really to a surprise to that management that, you know, what a stimulating factor that has been, right? So you're so heads down in the way you have been working. And if there is also not the cultural anchor in the company traditionally that emphasizes the change making, or is not in that sense encouraging and empowering the employees to think that way, they will not do it. Simple as that, right? They do their job, they come 9 to 5, and then they're gone. They're not emotionally touched by what they're actually doing. And then suddenly a hackathon or another kind of event, or by changing in little steps your cultural perspective, it will drive a very different dynamic to your business. And in the end, the organization really take the prize home in the end of the day.
Thanks, Joerg. And that's what I think will help bring us to a close for our workshop today. That's what we also want to inspire all the partners who are and participants, right? Maybe you're with a nonprofit working with one of our Microsoft partners as you listen to this workshop and participate in the hackathon. This is an opportunity to help you grow your business in a different way. So we hope you embrace the opportunity, find some unlikely partners. Maybe it will go somewhere. Maybe it's more about skill building. Maybe it's going to plant the seed for a future product. We have other examples. If you listen into some of the other sessions, the Build for 2030 introduction session, the accessibility session, the responsible AI session, you're going to be hearing so many other examples of how social impact has driven innovation and driven business success, as well as community impact. So we will leave you today with a final set of actions. We are actionable change makers here, and that's what we want to inspire. Be a change maker. You're probably already one if you were drawn to this workshop and the hackathon. But grow that skill set. Continue to invest in growing that skill set and help evangelize this framework or some of the elements of this framework with your team, your organization, your customers, the community you live with, and choose to maybe focus on one or two skills to develop. Continue to leverage the questions from this workshop. We could upload this deck, and there was also an article that actually summarizes the entire Ashoka framework in partnership with Microsoft that you can download from aka.ms/partners/changemaking-culture-download, and we will be uploading this as well into the Build for 2030 Hackathon community. So thank you, everyone. We look forward to reading all your hackathon entries and for you to continue building your change-making skills. Thanks for being here. And thanks, Joerg, Jeanine, always for your fantastic insights and partnership.
Thank you, Gena. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Here.